copy of Exhibit A, which were some things that came up since the book went out that I wasn't aware of.
Hey, Shirley, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to approve Exhibit A to a motion. Was Mr. Warner, would you accept that?
I'll accept.
And Frankie, would you say that?
Yes.
Did you accept that?
Okay, so Lacey, would you come up and kind of go over this with us?
Yes, ma'am. So Exhibit A in front of you, I'll go through the changes 1 through 14. So number 1, change to Gen Fund Ops, AU 1010-280, $1,252,000 for the landfill. Number 2, contributions and donations, 1010-042, increase $125,000 for community projects. 3, Tribal Council House in the capital projects budget, AU 7965300, transfer out $50,000. Number 4, Veterans Center capital projects budget, AU 7965200, $100,000 transfer out. Number 5, radio show, Gen Fund, AU 1010-035, $127,805, increased revenue due to an MOU with C&D. Number 6, Election Commission, Gen Fund 1010-360, decrease $100,000, no need for a special election. Number 7, discretionary get out the vote, motor vehicle tax 105-0041, decrease $50,000, decrease in PAC. Number 8, Gen Fund Ops 1010-280, $1,802,969, bringing in funds for carryover/settlement. Number 9, Sequoia High School, DOI General, 32 all zeros, $850,000 grant funding shortfall. Number 10, Cash Reserve, Gen Fund 1010-300, $36,347 adjustment based on approved budget. 11, Gen Fund Ops 1010-280, $50,000 offset to reduction of PAC. Number 12, Gen Fund Ops 1010-280, $100,000 transfer in from Veterans Center. Number 13, Gen Fund Ops 1010-280, $50,000 transfer in from Tribal Council House. Number 14, Gen Fund Ops 1010-280, $850,000 transfer to Sequoia High School. Total adjustments proposed, $2,967,121 in sources, $2,963,347 in uses, for a net surplus of $3,774 for a total comprehensive budget of $7,767,101,423.
Okay, so those are the changes. And we're going to start now and let each department come forward and kind of present. There are very few changes to the budgets in the departments, but just in case you have any questions about what's going on in that particular department, this is your opportunity to ask. And I'm going to start actually with the Marshal Service because Shannon is kind of covered under right now. So he is actually 15. So if you want to go ahead and go over to that tab and have any questions for Marshal Buell, I'm sure he would love to answer them. Yes, Councilor Lane.
Madam Chairman, I have a question, but it's on the Tribal Council House funding. I thought that was gone. Is there any more funding left in that?
We had kept 200,000 when we transferred the big balance to the health equipment. We kept 200,000 in that budget. There's been some of the funds used for the demolition and those kind of things this year. So there's a balance left in that, that's the reason why we're using that.
So what will be that balance?
It's probably gonna be a little over, we're probably gonna have a little more than 50, just using kind of 50,000 to be on the conservative side. And once the final year-end numbers come in, we'll have to do an adjustment to zero it out.
So it's not zero now, but it will
It's
be.
not zero now, it's probably gonna be a little more than that, but we'll come back once the 2015 final numbers are in, we'll zero it out at that time with the excess funds.
The Veteran Center,
They have, in their capital construction, there was some balance left in there too, so that's a conservative number to take out from them, and that'll come back when the final numbers are in on them also.
thank you.
Okay. Now, if you'll take a look at Marshall Buell's budget, if there were any questions on that or anything that needs to be clarified for you, he'll be happy to do that. Yes, Counselor Hargis?
Shannon, it says you have 8 vacant positions. Are you trying to fill those? Are those for marshals or are they office or?
They're all the above. We acquired emergency management past year, and so we've put in 2 positions, one for a qualified emergency manager, because it should be somebody that's actually really good at that job and not a marshal. How's that? So we've opened that, getting that through HR now to get that position open, and then a special projects officer type to help that person, whoever that person is. So that's 2. We've had a couple resign, one retired, so we're just gonna be backfilling those as we go through the year. So it takes kind of a long time to get them hired. One of our new marshals started today. He should be at HR doing his briefing today.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shannon? All right, got off easy. Okay, if you have any questions from the Office of the Chief, Lacey can take us through that. Okay. If not, we'll move on down to questions from the council. Jody could address those for us. Brings us to the judicial branch. Is anybody here from the Attorney General's office?
From the judicial
From
branch?
the judicial branch?
No, ma'am. The budgets are consistent with prior year.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Thornton.
Lacey, on your presentation,
Yes, sir.
you've had 2016 FTEs for vacant positions.
Yes.
Is there any way we could, or do you already have a total in revenue for those vacant positions? In other words, Department of Labor, you got 108, but how much revenue is that taking out of the budget?
I don't know that answer, but I'm sure Chrissy can run those numbers. And we can, oh, of the new FTEs or the vacant? Oh, new and vacant, okay.
It may, this budget here give us something to work with. Don't know. We'll find out.
Turn that out.
Thank you.
So did you want me to let you go ahead and dig there?
If you look in my book on the summary all funds section, there's a report kind of in the middle there, it's page 6. Let me see if that's not bad. Actually, it's going to be page 10. Page 10 under the summary all funds section has the dollar values for the vacants and the FTEs, or the new FTEs.
page you say, Jody?
Page 10, and then also, yeah, page 10. That has it broken down by the different divisions, if that's helpful.
So it's total about 27 million.
Yeah, there's 21 million for vacant positions and 6.5 million for the new FTEs. One thing to note too is the,
Does it have
especially,
broke down by department?
Yes, it is.
it's just by the division, like health division,
Page 10.
one thing to note too, on the, especially on the health department, they do budget a vacancy rate. So, you know, they have the total budget, say, for their salaries and benefits, but then they also budget a vacancy rate, which is a reduction in the budget based upon what they expect as a vacancy rate, so.
Look like it's here, Lacy.
Thank you.
What tab's that number?
It doesn't have a number, it's,
the fourth tab.
Someone?
it's before number one, immediately before number one. But like the first few tabs don't have numbers.
It's the fourth.
So it was too far in the back, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
You gotta make two.
Way back. And then page 10 under that.
We found it.
Okay, so that question being answered, that brings us to the Office of Attorney General, I believe.
Yes, the Office of the Attorney General is unable to be here today, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. No. There were only two major changes to this budget. There was a reduction in legal fees of $300,000, which this is a budget that usually gets replenished at carryover. And there was a reduction in grant funding of $310,000 related to the CN Water Plan DOI budget. It's one-time funding as well. Those are the only changes.
Okay. So education services? Yes. Have any questions for Mr. Davis or Mrs. Pigeon on that?
I have a comment. Hey, Jennifer, Bruce, yes, you guys are budgeted 9.7 million for higher education scholarships, and that's for FY16. And I know we're gonna have a carryover coming in springtime. I'd make a recommendation if you guys could look at the scholarships, the 307 scholarships, and fund those out of the FY16 budget, and then when carryover comes, we could supplement losses if funding's available. Be $614,000.
I don't know how to answer that question, if that's a decision that's above us, and then if this council acts as a body, then that would probably be the,
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I like to have the executive director, I was just looking at the funding from past years. 2010, we're at 6 million, 6.7. Then this year, we're up to 9.3. That's quite a jump. I would like for the education staff to give us analysis, what we can project in the next 2 or 3 years, so we can stay ahead of the game, because we negotiated motor fuels years ago to go to our education funds. And we may need to take another look at that somewhere down the road, but until we get analysis from the executive director and the staff, then I think then we can address Counselor Walkenstick's issue here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We'll check on that for you, Joe.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yes, Counselor Lee?
And Counselor Walkenstick raised a point about, are we short still yet on funding for, was it 217?
We're gonna fund everybody that had an application in on time, of our June 12th deadline and before. But we had, 307 that had contacted us after that June 12th deadline, through like mid-July. And so that list could still grow today if we were still keeping that list. We've gone ahead and told those students, you know, at this point in time, we're not gonna be able to fund you, and so that's where we are. We'll fund close to 3,800 students this fall. So that's on time.
And was the 300 the amount that you mentioned?
614,000. 614,000.
Go ahead, Counselor Walkenstick.
I had students that tried to get online and register, and the system had crashed for whatever reason, and because I went on there and tried to help them myself. And I sent them to you guys, and you guys wrote their names down because they wasn't able to log in. And then it had some kids that they couldn't get their financial aid because they owed the IRS money. And you guys' requirements is kids gotta have their financial aid turned in to get the. And my thinking on that is why do we ask for financial aid, which restricts kids from getting their scholarships? And because there's a lot of variables that come into play when a kid can't get a Cherokee scholarship because they work, they can't pay the IRS back their money or whatever, and they can't get financial aid, and so they can't get their money through the tribe. You know, and I've brought this up before. But anyways, but with that being said, I know Mr. Miller's got kids in his classroom, and we all probably got constituents in our districts that every story's different, but it is what it is. And I do believe in deadlines, and I think we need to stick to deadlines. But when you got a system that crashed or broke or there's other circumstances, I think we need to be sensitive to those.
And we've been looking at those case by case. You know, we've had students, when we sent out the letter, they said we've had this correspondence or that correspondence with an advisor or somebody in the office. We've gone back and looked through those. If there were those instances that we've been able to trace back, then those students were added based on those circumstances.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yes, Harley?
Do we have any estimated numbers for dropouts for last year? Do we have,
We have last year's numbers, and they were very small.
dollar-wise?
We just have to go figure it for you, Harlan. It's not gonna be, it's gonna be a minimal amount.
Because I remember several years ago when we had discussed this options, it was like almost $1 million. I'm just curious what it is
Okay.
today or last year. So
We'll check for you.
we'd like to see those numbers too.
Sure.
Okay.
Good questions. Anything else for education? Okay. Let's keep up the good work. You got a big job over there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Is anybody here from health? Connie was here earlier and she asked me to estimate how long it would be. So if you'll indulge me, we're gonna skip on past that. And then when she comes back, we'll let her be first up. So that brings us to financial resources.
So the Financial Resources Department provides financial support to the nation and its programs. The departments within Financial Resources include accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchasing, payroll, travel, contracts, and grants management. Significant changes for these budgets from last year include a reduction due to the remaining contract support cost settlement of $10 million from 2015 being fully budgeted in 2016, offset by increases in transfers out for additional funding of $5 million needed to complete the tribal complex construction project. There was a reduction in unappropriated reserves of $6.1 million, and that's the budget that we use to, bank the carryover available after the fiscal year end is closed. And the budget will be adjusted once we complete the fiscal year end audit in the April-May timeframe. And so I'll answer any questions you might have on financial resources.
Anybody? Okay, let's go on down to community services. anybody here from Community Services?
We're texting, that we're going kind of quick to have. So go ahead and get 10, 11, 12, 13 lined up too. The
Yes,
community.
Matt, is Community Services here? Are you gonna present?
Yeah, we're texting everybody as it's, getting close to their time, but sometimes we're moving a little bit quicker than they might be able to get here.
Yeah.
So I'll
Yes,
tell you.
they need to be on standby. We wanna hear from them.
Everybody is, yes. So if you want to come back to that one,
I'd like
don't-
to come back.
okay. And so human resources is pretty easy.
Okay.
I can handle that one. The Human Resources Department provides support to the nation's departments and employees. It includes recruiting and training of new employees and the administration of the employee benefit programs. The significant change for this department from last year is an increase in expenditure authorization of $262,000 to maintain existing operations, including professional memberships / certifications, equipment, and supplies.
Counselor Lake?
I guess I've got only one question from Human Resources, and I don't know that you can ask it, or answer
Okay.
it. The time that it takes for people to apply and get hired.
Time to fill.
Is that shortened?
I think they're making good strides there. I know that they're putting more accountability requirements on the departments to turn around information, and the secretary might be able to address that in greater detail.
Nason's been a great leader on shrinking that time. Every department's a little different, so it's a little harder to fill in some places, but I don't have him at my fingertips, but he has been tracking the time to fill, and the time to fill overall has shrunk, and he reports periodically to the council, and if he's not including references to that in his report, I know he'd be glad to do it, because he's proud of the progress they've made. I don't have any specific numbers for you, I just wanted to note that that's one of his top priorities, is decreasing the time it takes to get a Cherokee employee.
And just to follow up on Councilor Wade's comment, I guess I haven't seen any of the decrease in time on that, and it really frustrates not only me, but the people that are applying for jobs, because they're out of a job and they gotta wait 6 to 8 weeks, and what I understand most of it is background check. I know C&E can do a background check fairly quick, so, I don't know, that's my complaint about the HR program, is it just takes so long to get people on board, especially when you're trying to hire nurses or providers. And I know Nathan has worked on it since he's been in there, but I guess I really haven't seen any progress on the situation, so I'd like to see that's how our people,
Yes, sir. And Chairwoman, I might add that Connie Chandler takes detailed notes of the discussion during these budget hearings, and also the additional requests for information that counselors pose. So, there's usually a follow-up to these questions that goes out after budget hearings. So if you don't get your answer today, you will.
Okay, and I saw Connie Davis come in. Connie,
Okay.
would you go ahead and come back up? Okay, who has questions in health?
I do. Notes.
You're not getting another class.
They used the helipad this morning.
You did that.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am, I'm
Good.
ready. Dentures and eyeglasses. I know some people are telling me that those aren't health, but to me they are. The funding has been put into the general fund of health through IHS, is that correct? I'm not sure what I'm reading here on the first page that's in the number one, but, let me take that back, up the third page. And the number one book, it's marked 2 of 16.
Yes, sir. You are correct. It has been transferred from a gen fund budget to IHS third party. And so you'll see that amount show as an increase to contract health in the third party, and then some I think you took it a
So
little bit over.
is that the IHS contract health, or is that our 5% program?
Oh, no, the 5% gen fund is still there.
Still
Yeah.
separate by itself?
Still separate.
And how do you track that? Once it goes in a gen fund, it seems like it's just kind of mysterious out there to me. Is it still tracked?
Yes. I mean, from the dollar standpoint, yes.
So the dentures and eyeglasses are still available, the funding,
Yes, yes.
the IHS funding? Okay.
And we get reports in health monthly on those expenditures and the balances toward the budget within our department.
Okay. Is there going to be an eye doctor at Oshaleta Clinic?
Yes, I responded to your email this morning. We have another meeting with NSU on Wednesday to discuss that.
Is that contract through them to
Yes.
provide, or
Yes,
will they be full-time there?
that's the expectation.
Will they be full-time there?
Yes.
And no audit?
I believe they're already there in Nevada. It's part of the discussion, and because it's around a contract, I can't speak to it publicly.
Are they going to be full-time and no audit?
Yes,
That means every day. When I say full-time,
Monday through
I don't
Friday.
mean Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. Okay. You have a general counsel now?
Mhm. Elizabeth Odell was moved last October, November.
Okay, so that's full-time.
Yes,
She is your counsel and not under the Attorney General's office?
she is still under the Attorney General as well. Health, as you know, takes a lot of time. There's so many contracts, and the addition of her services specifically focused on health has helped us streamline and expedite many of the contracts that take a lot of time.
So is she there full-time or two-thirds time or
I don't remember exactly
she's
how it
full-time.
is. Yeah,
full-time?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Anybody else have questions for Ms. Davis? Thank you. Okay, I did see Ron Falls come in. We'll go ahead and do community services now.
Good morning.
I'll start with you, Harley.
Ron, I
Save
know
the best
just
for
recently
last.
we had increased the water and sanitation budget by several $100,000. Do you anticipate this happening every year? I know we didn't put enough money in it last year, and it looked like it was a flat budget from last year too. And I take Lacey, that's norm, that you're gonna do a flat budget from year to year from 15 to 16. What I understand is happening, the IHS and the water and sanitation program, the IHS funding has dropped almost 35–40%. What are you gonna do to keep this program running throughout the year that's coming?
Well,
Less services, I guess, that's the answer. I don't know of anything else we can do, but.
potentially, we will have less services. The thing is, the IHS funding has dropped, and it's dropped by a similar amount every year for the last 4 years, including this year. So without some adjustment by IHS, yes, there could be lesser services.
I guess what I did notice is, we put almost the same amount of dollars in the water line expansion program. My feeling is maybe we need to adjust that program and put it in the individual water and sewer. But, and the reason I'm saying that, Ron, is because most of the people up in these areas are living out of they're living in places where there's not gonna be any water lines. And I just feel like those people need those services out there because most of them don't have a well out there. Whereas, and I guess the argument is, you know, the people that live along the water line, a lot of those people already have a well, but we're just extending those water lines out to put them on the water line. So I wish we would take a look at those numbers and see, we may want to make adjustments, and we can do that later in the year if we need to. I know, I talked to Billy Hicks, and there's several water line projects that are already programmed out, but I just think the people that live in these rural areas are probably gonna need a well, because I feel like a lot of these people that's gonna be served by water line already have a well, and we're disconnected to it. So I wish we'd take a look at that and be a little bit more precise on that.
Sure.
I just feel like, people living in rural areas are gonna need the water more. Okay, okay, thank you.
Another thing to consider on that line of thinking is there are grants available for water line expansions. There are
exactly.
not grants available that we can capture for individuals. And these small rural departments need to think of us as the funding source of last resort and go after the grants. I've been involved in some where they just didn't get their paperwork in on time, you know, or whatever, to apply for the grants. And so you bring a valid point.
That's a good point
to
too,
that.
Madam Chair, because I've seen a lot of these projects.
We can assist in those grants.
This water line extension, you go in, you paint a standpipe and stuff like that, and I just think we need to put more responsibility on those rural water districts to get those grant things in,
Yes.
because there are grants for rural water districts, a lot more than what the chair lady said about wells. I don't think there's a grant out there for wells, but wish we'd actually take a look at that, and if we need to make some adjustments midterm, we may want to take a look at that also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point, Harley. Okay, anybody else with questions for Ron? All right, go Counselor Lay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ron, on the replacement home program, have y'all identified funding? You and the secretary, I think, are working on something, so.
We don't have anything concrete. What we've looked at is loans, borrowing money. We can do that through Title VI, which doesn't require leverage. We can also just go through a regular bank. But we're looking at Title VI, which is borrowing funds without collateral. It's a federal program. We're looking at that. You know, we've got 60-plus families that's on the waiting list. So that's a real problem to talk to families about when we don't have a readily source of funds that we can say, we're going to help you next year, or even we're going to help you 2 years from now. We can't even say that because the way we've been providing those replacement homes is basically 15 a year. And if you're looking at 50 or 60, that's a lot of years down the road. So we're going to look for and continue to look for ways to provide those homes, hopefully in a much shorter time frame than 4 or 5 years.
These replacement homes for new counselors are usually, will always go to our most deserving citizens, usually elders, usually either disabled, kids or grandkids in the home. Houses are falling down around them. And so we need to figure something out.
Yes, yes we do. I agree.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
On the self-help materials only program, how successful has that been, or what are we doing with that? Is that just for the elderly or the
Yes, it's
disabled, or is it?
Elderly, disabled, and handicapped, yes. I think it's a really great program myself. It gives the family a way to get some stuff done now instead of waiting. And I think it's a very good program. I'm looking forward to continuing.
So what's your budget on it?
$315,000.
And we, is it $2,000? Is that the limit?
It's 2,000, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair. Ron, on that self-help with the elderly people, do we guide the self-help program and monitor that? Because if they're not capable of handling the project themselves, do we go out and monitor and make sure that they've got the right equipment instead of
Yeah,
just.
we do that regardless of whether they're elderly or disabled. We'll do that anyway. The elderly sometimes have difficulty in finding someone to assist them.
That was my point.
Is the big problem.
Yeah. You know, it seemed like we could somehow expedite the services to the elderly that need small amount type of projects, like a door, a window, or heating and air. There's some of those projects out there that I don't feel like those elderly are capable of filling out that lengthy application. Somehow we need to expedite that process. That, you know, that's really the biggest complaint that I would have is, how do we get the services to our elderly people out there or disabled in a timely way without going through that lengthy process? And maybe we can get together sometimes, and it may need to come back to the council for some type of legislation to address how do we handle that process.
Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Good point.
Yes, Councilor Vasquez?
And in that same vein, Ron, I would just like to add that it would be nice to have a follow-up with people that had actually used that self-help, follow up with people that got the money. Did they fix what needed fixed, or did nothing happen?
Good point.
We really need follow-up. Thank you.
Good.
On the minor emergency repair, Ron, I see there's like a $200,000 cut from last year. How much are we allowing on minor emergency repair? Is there a limit on per house?
Yes. It depends. When we get into minor emergency, a lot of times when we get to the site, we figure out there's a lot more stuff.
Usually there are.
Yeah. And so what we have to do is we have authority to go over the $7,500 limit. And
Well, how much you say?
7,500.
Oh,
We have
Okay.
authority to go over that with my concurrence. So it very seldom turns out to be exactly just a set amount.
And I've noticed usually over the past year that program usually depletes its funds fairly quickly. I didn't see how much you had as a carryover last year. See, we had a $200,000 reduction in the budget this year. But,
Council, are you looking at accounting unit 102-3030?
yes.
Okay, I'm showing it's flat with prior year, 387 in 2015.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, I'm looking at 14 actual.
Okay.
Yeah, 14 actual was 587,000, so
This is
we're
what
spending a lot more in there.
Stimulus.
Okay, well, we'll deal with it when we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Ron, we appreciate you. Okay, I did see Mason Morton with Human Resources come in, and he brought back up. So go ahead and have them come back up, and you can address your questions to them.
Good morning.
Questions on time to fill
We are continuing to make progress on the total time to fill and including the time it takes to get through background. When we started out, we didn't have a uniform list that from the time someone put in an application, says, hey, I need someone to fill this position, to the time we put a person in the chair. So now we have been working on, and we have a list, and I can bring that to the next Rules Committee meeting, that details for each hire, the first time the department says, hey, I need somebody, to the time we put them in the chair. Now, trying to fix the problem, it doesn't do you much good unless you know some of the major steps in between. So we've also narrowed it down to specific parts of the amount of time it takes to advertise a position. We stick it up on our website, so it sits there a week. Well, for our time, for that particular case, we can do nothing with it. The department, it's just there until we collect the names to put to the department. So what we have done is we've gotten, and we're continually to put them to each step in the process. So now I have a list that says based on your requisition, how many days it takes in each step. And so I can bring that to the next Rules Committee meeting, and we can go through. And it will go from, this particular one, I can make it from October 1 of last year, and it will probably go to the last day in July. That'll just give our progress so far for this year. And basically, that's all the ones that were opened and closed during that time period. And we also could compare that with the last 2 years. So I'll bring that with me, and we can talk about it as long as you guys want to. If I make it last long enough, maybe you buy me dinner.
Maybe.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll look forward to hearing that. Any other issues or questions that you want to bring out? Yes, Councilor Crittenden?
I'm just curious, the advertisement time, how long is that?
It varies. Minimum is normally 7 calendar days, 5 business days. Sometimes they'll want more than that, or sometimes they need, depending on the job, it would be advertised in a specialized trades magazine or something like that. But for your average job or your first one, it's 7 calendar days.
Thank you. And background check, how long is that taking you now?
It depends. It'll take a little bit longer for hard-to-fill positions, but I'll give you the number for all of them. I don't want to say off the top of my head, but we have its own little column. So you know exactly the days. And we'll go into this more detail at the next rules meeting. To make this work as a day-by-day basis, I base it on calendar days. And obviously on holidays and weekends, we can't get anything done, but your actual count for time is calendar days.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bruce, can you do management resources for us?
Good morning again. Try to answer any questions that you might have. I know, working with Treasurer Lacy, we work hand in hand with our budgets and try to make everything work. The big project that we have going now is the second story on this building. So other than that, we're pretty much, she has us under control, so.
If there are no questions for Bruce, we'll move on to commerce. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about commerce.
Well, you're getting to go before Diane, so we're gonna give you.
I know. I was a little worried about that when I saw her come in, but.
Charlie?
Yeah, can I ask, Anna, can you give us an overview of your budgets, your increases and decreases real quick?
Sure. Overall, our budgets are pretty consistent. They're pretty flat line. There are some changes that are all based off of grant funding, basically, and grants that we no longer, that it finished this year and that we are unsure of whether we're getting them again for the next year. So there is a little bit of a deficit of $784,000, but that overall, but again, that is based off of grants and available loan funding.
Are there any new initiative in your overview?
No, not for this year. I mean, we're continuing to try to improve the programs that we have, so.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good job.
All right, Anna. Thank you.
You.
Okay, brings us to human services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not sure how you want to proceed, I guess, for questions, or I can tell you a little bit about human services. We deal mostly with, from people from birth to death. We have programs that are all in between. we deal with families that are in stress, and they come to us when they have cutoff notices. We have our food distribution program is under this. Our contracted service with all the funeral homes is under Human Services. And our child enforcement, where we bring revenue into the tribe, is underneath Human Services. I can go, are you wanting us to go individually, or?
Just if anybody has any questions about your budget mainly, Councilor Lay does.
So Marcia, down on, towards the bottom of page 1, the food distribution, nutrition, and food warehouse. There's nothing in the 2016 budget. Am I misreading that, or what happened?
It's being combined up into account unit 345341. You see where there's $2.6 million increase. So you'll see rather than the separate AUs, it's being summed up into one.
Well, just right on top of it.
Yes.
So does that equal out the same amount as the previous year?
Yes.
And so those funds will still go for those programs?
Yes.
Yes.
Why did we do that?
Why did we combine these?
Yeah, why did you combine the amounts?
It wasn't necessary to track it the way we had it in the past, and so it just made it easier to use one account unit.
You want to separate?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Buzzard?
I can't see it in here right now, Marcia, but on the truancy program, it's a project over in Adair County, I think. Is it still funded? I can't find it.
Are you talking about the Healing to Wellness?
Yeah, Healing the Wellness.
No, sir.
It's not funding at all, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know this program was specifically geared up for Adair County back 4 or 5 years ago when it started, but why did we take it out of the budget, do you know?
It was a program that was funded through a grant, and then the council kept putting it back in there.
So we did put tribal funds with it after the grant ran out.
It's a grant run
I
out.
understand this program is mainly in Adair County, and I understand why it's in Adair County, because that's where we have a lot of problems with truancy. I thought it was a good program. I don't know what it was funded for last year. Can you tell me that, Lacey? $38,000.
Bright Futures and Healing to Wellness, they're both about the same. One deals with the court, and one deals with school referrals.
$139,000 a year. I don't know, do you think this program was successful, and do you think, tell us why it was successful?
The program was successful because it basically changed lives. You have someone who is a juvenile, and because of peer pressure or because of other issues, they start maybe using drugs. They're not in the court system yet, and they're referred to our program to actually keep them out of the court system. That way, they have a chance in life. We're actually working in Delaware County. There's some more counties that we have kind of expanded in, not to a great deal, but, you know. The numbers aren't big, but when you're talking about changing 4 or 5 lives a year, that's 4 or 5 lives that won't have that stigma with them. And You know, I could go on and on about this program, but that's basically what it is.
Well, I'd like to see us put at least $75,000 back into that program this year. We could come up with that amount of money, Lacey. Can we do that?
I think that's the will of
Time you deal with kids, no matter where they are, you know, we just put the money. So, I make a motion that we put $75,000 back in this account. Keep it going.
$75,000 for both programs?
Second.
I can't run it for that.
How much you need to run?
I would say, are you talking about the bare bones minimum?
Well, it sounds like I probably am.
Yeah, 300,000.
Oh, wow.
Because you're talking about staff, you're talking about working with the court, you're talking about overtime for people if we have to. I mean, we might get a call. It's like if someone's home is, their electric's cut out, you're talking about a juvenile in trouble. We go out when that is. We have community meetings, we have family meetings.
Mr. Secretary, is there any way we can help fund this program?
Well, Counselor, we're always looking for grants for this kind of effort. This kind of effort is needed in Adair County, it's needed in Cherokee County, it's needed in all our counties. There was an acute problem in Adair County. It was good that we had the grant money to fund it, and they were able to sustain it a little bit with tribal dollars. But this was a flat budget and make some difficult choices. And so, you know, you can take any dollar for this program, and if you affect the lives of one child, you could say that's a great success. The big picture of the whole budget, though, to make some difficult choices about what to do with these precious Gen Fund dollars. And I think in evaluating this program, yes, you could point to some successes, but I think in terms of empirical evidence of how much difference it made in a relatively small geographic area, the decision was, look, maybe we can look for some grant funding down the road. We haven't identified any. We certainly always keep our eyes open, but it sounds like we would need more money to fund this program than we could without throwing the presented budget out of balance, so I'd be concerned about that, doing it a little bit on the fly.
Secretary,
Yes, sir.
we toured a Justice Department there while we were in North Carolina. And they had a TANF program, grant. Are we eligible for that? And it addressed some of this stuff here, and I saw where we had a decrease, maybe similar to the runaway youth there, 70,000 decrease. But are we eligible for that, this TANF program that the Justice Department gave there in North Carolina? Are you familiar with that, Marcia?
We've looked at.
Barbara Foreman, are you familiar with that?
We're not participating.
So how come we're not applied yet?
We're looking into that right now, Joe. Looking at that program.
So that's a grant opportunity, Secretary, that would help. Something to look into. I know we can use gen dollars, but if we can use grant money, it'd be better.
Anytime we can lean on federal dollars to accomplish that kind of a goal, we ought to, particularly if we can spread it out over a larger geographic area and
Sure.
help some of these other school districts that.
Okay.
Counselor Crittenden?
Thank you, Councilor Buzzard, for bringing that up. That's a program that's in my district, and I happen to know a lot of the workers personally, hard workers, good program. Just looking at it, need to be tweaked a little bit. I believe in the program, but is that something, like someone mentioned, that at a later date, like if some grant money would come in, or it's something that we could sit down and try to get the ball back rolling with something like
And
that?
maybe expand it.
Because some other councilmen here, I'm sure, know the folks, know the program. Good intended, good results. But like I said, I know it needs tweaked a little bit, and I can see kind of both sides, but I would definitely be interested in later on looking at something like that, because as you said, Adair County, there's a problem with stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'll
definitely be interested in looking at that. Thank you again. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you. And I think this council is probably the best council we've had so far to look at that, because we've got to look at that who know, as Councilor Crittenden said, you can't just put a blanket on this, and we've got these 5 educators on here who know from the inside what needs to be done. So I do think it would be worth looking at.
Thank
Do you have something else to say, Harley?
No, that's
Okay.
it. I just think, anytime that we cut funding for children, we're really hurting the future. So, and that was my concern about bringing this up. But anytime that has to do with kids, like our scholarship program, we're not touching that. And same way with these kids. These kids need a chance in life. And, that's where I was coming from. But thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, so are there any other questions for, yes, Councilor Smith?
What about the burial assistance? Some of these funeral homes that I've saw and talked with and stuff said they haven't been, their wages haven't been raised up in years. Are they pulling my leg just trying to get more money, or is that actual truth?
Can you repeat that one more time, Counselor?
No,
So
I
they
can't.
haven't had a what in years?
Raising their,
Oh, raising the contract.
contract.
Yeah, the contracted service is funded through 2 different funding sources. BIA, which you have to go through Congress to get, and tribal, which is the tribal funds that you guys provide. We always have to rely on the tribal to increase anything like that. Yes, the funeral homes are talking to us about some type of increase, because it's probably been about 6 years since we've had any type of increase. But I haven't brought it before the council because I had other problems that were hurting more, and we do the best we can with what we've got.
but you are looking at it and working on it.
We can look at it, we can give you a projection of what it is. I'm sorry, I just went blank, I can't think what Jerry said, but we did a projection on what we thought they would be satisfied with. It was a slight increase.
Okay.
I can get that to you, everybody.
Councilor Austin?
How many people are served by that? For the burial assistance?
In Gen Fund perspective, in 2013, there were 244. In 2014, there were 196.
Were we able to fund everybody who sought assistance?
The answer to that is probably no, because there is an income guideline attached to that. In order to have a contracted service, we had to make our tribal funds the same as BIA, and there is an income limit on that.
Okay, I guess the question is, were we able to help everybody who qualified, who,
Yes.
okay.
Mhm.
So, my question goes back to, is this sufficient budget for the people who are seeking?
Well, what we do is every year is there's usually a shortfall, but we're able to work with we have such a good rapport with the ones who we do the business with. They know that like in September our payments might be a little slow, and we may have to wait till October 1. So there's always a shortfall.
So does this budget show us the shortfall?
Yes, every year.
So we had the same number last year as we have next year.
Yeah, and it's you can't. That's not something you can predict.
But I just want to make sure those who
have the real need are getting taken care of.
Yes, sir.
That's the
Yes,
root
sir.
of my question. And I think you're saying that those who applied, who qualified, got taken care of.
Yes, sir.
And that the funds going forward should be sufficient for that need.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I do want to add one thing to that. We have to have a contract in place with the funeral home that the funeral has been done for. So if a citizen that well qualifies is adamant about using a funeral home that is outside our contracts, we really can't,
Right.
you know, so there's kind of two issues.
Yeah, and if like Sequoia County, that's a good example. We just signed a new contract with the new funeral home there. And it's because they hear about it. So we can't say we've got 14 contracted funeral homes because it's always changing. They buy out, they sell out, they change hands, they change names. And so, and we always leave that open. We'll go down and explain the program to them. We'll explain that, you know, we provide, that we expect this kind of service, which is probably if someone wasn't a tribal member or wasn't eligible, it cost them around $6,000 to $8,000. So it's a nice service. You know, we've come a long way. I believe when this program first came out, if I remember right, we paid $750 and that was it.
Counselor Hargis had something to add.
How much is the current contract amount?
I'm sorry.
The current contract amount, what is that?
It's $2,400.
Okay, the projections that you mentioned to Counselor Snow, would you provide that at the next meeting?
I'm so sorry.
She asked if you would provide that at the next meeting, so.
Yes, I will.
We'll have that in
I
our
will.
follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to make an announcement. We're going to hear from the Environmental Protection Commission and the Gaming Commission, and then we're going to take a lunch break. So if there are other departments here, other than those two, you're probably going to be presenting after lunch. I just wanted to give you a heads up, respect of your time. Thank you, Marcia.
What environmental?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Tom always has good news for us.
You know it.
Anything you want to know about environmental protection, he's your guy.
Anything you want to know, but we're afraid to ask.
There you go.
Pretty flat,
Yeah.
underspent.
There were no significant changes in this budget except for one reduction of $30,000 that they received last year for as one-time carryover funding for the rewrite of the Cherokee Nation Environmental Code. That's it.
Hey, does anybody have any questions for Tom? John?
Earlier today, when you presented, I noticed you spoke of mold and different things. All right. Down in Sally Bull Hall, you know, we had some guys and they're working with me and they're sending the emails and just good gentlemen over there, the rehab.
Yeah.
But there was one ceiling that if you could see any white that wasn't mold, it was
Be
terrible.
hard-pressed.
It was terrible. So does your department work hand in hand with rehab to?
We do. They contact us and will say, could you do a mold inspection for us? And for the most part, if you can see mold, you don't need an inspection.
Right,
You have mold.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. If it's more than a couple feet, a homeowner probably shouldn't try to undertake that. It should be somebody that's trained, not so much in mold, but, I mean, you'd want to wear a face mask. You know, the problem with mold is that the level that would bother you would not bother this person. And there are absolutely no regulatory guidelines on mold. We can have this much of this species and this much of this species. If you have mold, visible mold, you need to get rid of it.
Right.
And so what we'll do sometimes, they'll call us in for different buildings here and they'll say, can you do a mold inspection? And what we do, we kind of screen it. If you can't really see mold,
per se. We'll go through and we'll do mold tests on the ambient air inside and then outside and see if the levels are really skewed. You know, if you've got a lot more outside than you do inside, it's probably a healthy building. If it's skyrocketed inside compared to outside, there's probably a problem you don't know about. And we use that as a screening tool. But if you can see mold, you have mold.
So you inspect.
We inspect. We're kind of like the finders, and they're the fixers.
You are welcome. All right, if there's no other questions for Tom, we'll let him go and move on to the Gaming Commission.
Thank you so much, Tom.
She put in her memo. That is in her. That was on that. That's the expected more.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone on this fine day?
Doing well.
Ready to pass budgets, I hope?
Working.
So the Gaming Commission just had the increase of $627,000 related to additional staffing and other expenses based on growth and casino expansion at Roland and South Coffeyville. And then also a new gaming ordinance was approved and is in the process of being implemented, so that's why you'll see the additional increase as well.
Okay, do you have,
You have 11 vacant positions. Are you filling those, or are you just leaving them open?
Yeah, actually, the 11 does include the 6 new ones that were approved about a month or so ago. One of those is in the process of being interviewed, actually 2 in the process of being interviewed. The others are in the process of being advertised. So, and since then, we've been able to hire 2 individuals to fill some vacancies, so we're actually down just to the new positions. So there's 6 positions that are open.
Thank you.
But we are actively trying to fill those right now.
Okay, thank you.
yes, Harley?
Are any of those positions, attorney positions?
No,
Do you have an attorney on board?
they're gaming agent positions and auditor positions.
Do you have an attorney?
No, we do not have an attorney on staff. We have use of the Attorney General's office for some internal work, and last year we were contracted out, actually, and again this year, we did contract out for one outside legal service for a court case that was filed within tribal court. That money has been included back on this budget because we did not know exactly how long or prolonged that litigation could have been. And in discussions just recently with the Attorney General's office, there may be at times where the commission may need outside representation. So we decided to leave those funds requested in there.
Okay. So, and how much were those funds?
It's $25,000.
Okay, so it's a small amount.
And that $25,000 mark actually came about as a historical type number. Up until a few years ago, we had that number included in our budget. With the representation from the AG's office, we felt that we could remove that from our budget. However, since other outside forces kind of intervened into to that piece of it, we requested those funds be added back in, and we'll probably look to maintain that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Counselor Byrd?
How many attorneys do you have on your gaming commission? I know of one.
We have one now. Chairwoman Leeds is our sole attorney that sits on the commission.
Okay.
She's good enough for all of them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Jamie?
Good job, Jamie.
All right, that being said, we are going to break for lunch. I think we'll probably take about 30 minutes unless somebody has something that they need to do. Let's go ahead and have Counselor Snell bless our meal while we're in here so we can just get out of here.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this day. Lord, bless the meal prepared for us this day. May it be nourishing to our bodies and take us through this hour. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so I expect to be back about noon. For those that are watching.